And also, Dave, I need you to enable me to also record on this channel as well. And then we'll start for sure.
Okay, now I can, yes. Okay, now it works. Все, тогда я буду, да, тогда я буду записывать русский канал.
So I will start recording the Russian channel too. Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Elseroad. I work with the Human Rights House Foundation. We are a Norwegian-based human rights organization. I work out of our office in Geneva, Switzerland, where our work is focused on advocacy at the United Nations, the Council of Europe, and the European Union. And we work very closely with the Educational Human Rights House Chernihiv, who've asked us to join today. Just a few technical things first. If you do not have a computer with internet in front of you right now, please try to get one, because a lot of the session today will require you to have different windows open while we're trying to work through Zoom. So please try to do that. The next point is, if you are one of the lucky people on the call who speak Russian and English, please stick with one language throughout this session, because it's too difficult with the interpretation to switch back and forth. Also, because we have simultaneous interpretation, please think of that when we respond to questions and things like that, to give interpretation time to catch up and to listen. And then finally, there are some different tools that we're going to use over Zoom, and we'll see how this works with 36 people. But first, I wanted everyone just to try raising your hand using the Zoom function. So if you go to your name and you can click on reactions and you can raise your hand. Very nice job. Everyone's raising their hand. And you can put your hand down now that you've put your hand up. And you can play with some of the other reactions. If you think what I'm saying is very interesting, you can clap or have, I think, fireworks. Yeah, parties. Olga understands. Perfect. Okay, great. And then one quick thing, if you have the opportunity because of your internet connection to turn on your camera, your video camera, it's always nice for people to see each other and to speak to faces and not to names. So if you do have the opportunity to turn on your camera, at least we can do it all at the beginning and wave and say hello. So hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Nice to see you. Okay. So today we are going to be talking about advocacy. I have been asked to facilitate this session. I understand you'll be meeting in person very soon, so this is the first virtual session. We're going to first start with a little activity to learn how to use one of the programs that we have right now that I'm going to be using. So if you look in the chat box right now, just a moment. If you click on this link should bring you to a mural page. And I'll give everyone a moment to come and enter this mural page. Please raise your Katarina Kashirna. Can you please lower your hand? And for others, if you have experience using mural, please raise your hand. Oh, some people do. Perfect. Perfect. I'm going to put the link into the chat box again because we have some people who just joined. So Mural is a great kind of virtual whiteboard. It can do a few things. You'll see here that I've put a few note cards here on the Mural page. Try clicking on one of those post-it notes and dragging it around. So you can see how you can move it around. If you want to add some text and say hello, introduce who you are and where you are right now. I'm going to do one for myself. You can practice making them bigger. Now, you can also zoom in and you can zoom out of this sheet. So if you want to move your post-it note to a different part of this whiteboard, you can do that. I'm going to move mine around. Let's try to group all of the post-it notes together. So let's put all of the yellow post-it notes together and all of the pink notes together, all of the blue notes together. Where are the yellows? I'm going to go over here by Je vais Belarus. And I'm reading some. We have Yulia from Kharkiv. We have Vadim from Vilnius. We have a Spanish speaker saying hola. Anna from Armenia. Valery is from Russia. Alexander from Belarus. Maria from Lviv. Tamil from Georgia. Now, there are some other things you can do also. If you look on the left-hand side of your screen, you can choose different shapes and connectors. If you want to draw some lines, draw some circles, please feel free. This is all practice. You're going to use this later in the session. Okay, perfect. So Mural is going to be one of the main ways that we try to do some of this work together. The other big way that we're going to do this work together is in small breakout groups. So I had a few for some of you, I think, confusing questions about your language abilities. Thank you for answering those. I have already divided everyone into different small groups based on what languages you speak. So you'll be in groups of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people. And the first activity that I want you to do, once I break you into groups, is to, as a group, think about the different words and terms that come to your mind when you think about advocacy. And you do that as a group. And I'll send you a link to a different Mural page and find a little spot on that page for your group and start putting some post-it notes there with different ideas that you have. I'll also ask Vadim to go in and from time to time, if he can, depending on how many notes we have, if Vadim, our interpreter, can, if it's in English, put it in to add the Russian next to it or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to ask, I need a volunteer. Can you please put up your hand if you want to volunteer something for me? Mariana, Gavasheli?
Hello.
Hi. Can you
Hi.
I want to make sure that I was clear with my instructions. Can you tell me what we're going to do next?
We're gonna use another link and go there and type words that we associate to advocacy. We're gonna do that in groups.
Perfect.
Yes.
So here I'm gonna give you the link, and then I'm gonna break everyone into breakout groups. So you can be talking in your breakout group while you're putting up the post-it notes. And I think I've assigned everyone into groups where you should be able to speak either Russian or English with everyone else in the group, depending on your language. So we'll see if this works. So I'm going to put the link here. That's the link. And I'm going to break us into small groups. If you have a question during this time, you can still send me a note through the chat box. And you can send me a note in English or in Russian, and I can join your breakout group and answer questions that you have. And I might also jump around to different breakout groups to see how things are going. Okay, so you have about 10 minutes to talk about what is advocacy for you. And now I'm going to divide us.
Hey, Dave. I think that we might pause. Да, или мне на русском, наверное, говорить, да, на этом канале, что мы можем поставить на паузу запись, наверное.
I think we can pause the record as long as they are in groups. Okay.
Sure. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Some people are still working, I see. Welcome back.
Hello. Okay, so I switched to Russian channel and also unpause the recording.
Great. So, lots of things on here. Thank you. If you are someone who speaks Russian and English and you want to help with translation very quickly, grab one of the post-it notes and add the other language onto it so that everyone can understand. It'll give us just a minute to do that. It's fun to watch all the movement in this document. So I'm looking at this. I see human rights. I see support, activism, security, defending rights of a certain group, empowering, freedom, public support, law, security. Are there other, and feel free to put words into the chat box. Are there any of the words here or terms or expressions that really stand out to you? You can raise your hand too if you'd like to talk. Feel free to put it in the chat box or to raise your hand. I see public support is a big one, statements, promotion, youth activism, networking, interests, protection. What are some of the words or expressions that come out very strongly for you? Maxime?
Вы говорите обо мне? Ну, мне понравилось, что, ну, и мой вариант адвокатирования — это защита интересов
It
определенных.
was about advocacy as defending rights of a certain group. And it was also about going legal and going public, and also a campaign towards a certain goal.
Thank you. How about Sanya? Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, me and my group, we wrote, we were on the far right corner,
Okay.
in order to find ourselves easily. But yeah, we wrote about a lot of things, such as it's a goal to achieve. It should be very important for everyone and in every country. It should be protected by the law. It should be provided by the law. It's a protection of rights. It's about standing up for people who can stand up for themselves and for a cause that we believe in or something similar. So yeah, we wrote the most important things here, I think.
Thank you. Who's in the green posted group? There's one big screen. Is it Malika? Milika?
It's Milica.
Milica.
Yeah. Basically, that's what's standing from theirs. It's like act of speaking, arguing, or pleading. Empowerment. I didn't see any empowerment sticker notes. Moral values, policy, maybe, and changes that's political or social, and accessibility also. Everything is included in others. So yeah, that's it.
And after people speak, I'm waiting a few seconds for the interpreter so that I don't have him go crazy. That's why I'm waiting between speakers. Who is in the pink? I see pink group. The big one says legalization and publicity. Is there anyone from the pink group? Who is that? I can't see everyone's screen, so feel free just to turn on your microphone and speak.
Дэйв, в розовых листочках говорил уже я, поэтому...
Well, I was from the pink notes. I have omitted one thing which is also interesting. The justice campaign, bringing something to the level of justice.
Great point. Thank you. So I'm going to leave this you have this mural document, you all have access to it. I'm going to put up on our screen, on your screen, I'm going to share my screen, a definition of advocacy that I want to share with you and get your perspective. So give me a moment to do that. Here we go. And Vadim and I struggled a little bit with the translation. So the Russian is a little bit longer because of the translation of the term advocacy. And so I don't want you to focus so much on the word advocacy, but more on kind of the broader concept. So advocacy as a set of targeted actions directed at policymakers in support of a specific policy issue. And I'll give you a moment to think about that. And what this, to me, this definition has is really, just a moment, really kind of 4 different aspects. It's planned. So it's a planned process. It's not something that we do, we do it with thinking behind it. That it's always directed at people who can make a decision or people who can influence a decision maker. So it might not be the prime minister. It might be the prime minister's friend or husband or wife. It includes a call to action around a policy issue. And in this regard, when I think of a policy issue, I think of a regulation, of a law, of a government action plan, of a budget. And finally, that it's dynamic. It's a process that changes. That a lot of planning goes into it, but we can still change things along the way because advocacy is a political, it's something political. It requires political action, and sometimes actions can change. I'm going to share this with everyone after I'll share it with Maria, who can share it with others afterwards. But I wanted to I'll stop my screen there and get your sense. What, do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think? And I'd say, please put up your hand first. Please put up your hand first, and I can call on you so that we don't make it too confusing for the interpreter. Svetlana, I think you spoke first. I'll give it to you first, please.
Смотрите, я согласна, но
Look,
я бы тут еще
I agree, but I would also add that it's not one person doing it. This is the whole campaign. There should be a team or an organization standing behind it. Running this campaign to defend the social group, their rights and interests. And I agree with the rest, but I would add, I don't think one person is capable of organizing the whole process. So I would say that there should be some NGO or a team. As you put it, it should be pre-planned, so they have to plan. This campaign should target certain cause or an issue for a social group or someone else, or for addressing a political issue, for example. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate the comment. Anna, I think you're the next one with a hand up.
I also agree with this statement, and I think that it's important that advocacy is targeted to policymakers, but also it's very important that we involve other stakeholders, and we also kind of make it targeted to other stakeholders, for example, media or just NGOs, which may be very important in terms that they will create pressure to policymakers and we will have our result faster.
Thank you. Who has a problem with my definition? I always like hearing people that have the problems with my definition.
I don't. I think it was perfectly put together and said everything and shortly and nicely.
Let me ask you another question. We have, I think, participants from a number of different countries. Some of your countries have more liberal governments or political systems than others. Raise your hand if advocacy as a term is something that is it's a problematic word to use in your country, or it's something that's considered negative by policymakers or by the public in your country. Alexander, I see you.
Можно пару слов на этот счет?
May I comment?
Please.
Да, вот я из Беларуси.
I'm from Belarus, hello.
Вот такое определение.
So, this definition of advocacy
В Беларуси носит чисто
in Belarus
теоретический характер. На деле
it is a pure theory, because in essence, for civil society to influence the decision of a prime minister is impossible, or at least highly problematic as of today. And I think the civil society or the people should stand behind the advocacy, as far as I understand it, but I can't understand it happening in Belarus. I can't imagine a normal dialogue, a normal civil society functioning in Belarus.
Thanks. Thank you. Maxime, you have your hand up too?
Да, я тоже из Беларуси, правда, я сейчас нахожусь в
I'm
безопасности.
also from Belarus, though now I'm in a safe country. So we have experience of advocacy, and I agree that it's highly challenging in Belarus with this government, which is not actually a government anymore. This is an illegitimate usurper who just clings to power violently. But there are also positive examples. I lived in Grushovka district in Minsk, where authorities wanted to destroy a park, and people in this neighborhood came together to defend their park, and we sent letters to officials, reaching up to the presidential administration head and the mayor of Minsk, and we defended our park, and they abolished their illegal regulations, because these regulations were in conflict with other pieces of legislation. They wanted to cut the trees and build houses. But this is just one successful example of advocacy, but there are millions of human rights violations in Belarus. However, this is a success story which shows the power of people coming together to defend their interests. Thank you.
That's a great example. Thank you. Inka, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for the question and thanks for very interesting inputs. I wanted to make a very small comment recently.
And also, sorry, and where are you from? Where are you sitting right now, if you're comfortable answering?
I'm from Ukraine, but I'm based in Austria. Yeah, and happy to be here with you. So I wanted to make a small comment. Actually, recently, I was involved in some translation activities, and not going so much into details, just wanted to say that, have you ever tried to translate with Google Translator the word advocacy? Do you know what would be the translation? It's horrible, because the translation would most likely be propaganda. And that's why it's really interesting to understand and to actually find this very thin line. What's the difference between propaganda and advocacy, and how can we actually defend the interests in a way that we are not judged and that we are not involved in all kind of propaganda activities, because this would be an argument from many authoritarian states. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I think, I think you all make really good points, and I have a few maybe closing kind of reflections on this kind of part of our session. And one is that I don't think that the word that you use, advocacy or something else, I don't think that the word is important. I think it's the concept that is important. And I would encourage you really to stay focused on the concept that I've really tried to outline in this session, and that is this idea that advocacy that we do should be strategic. It should be something that you're doing with a plan in mind, that you have an outcome that you're trying to achieve, and that outcome is probably related to a law or a policy or a regulation or a new budget or something like that. And that because of that outcome is a political outcome, and therefore it really needs, your actions need to be focused towards policymakers, the people that make those decisions. Now, some people don't have access to those decision makers because you're in a particularly repressive place, or because it's a small organization, you don't have the influence. And therefore, there are other ways to try to target specific decision makers, and that, of course, becomes something that's very specific for a particular country. And then finally, the last point that I would make is, when you're thinking about the concept of advocacy, is to really focus on this idea that you're planning, you're setting a strategic plan, but that plan is going to probably change as time goes on, and that's okay. There are opportunities to look back at your plan, to think about what's working, what isn't working, and to try to adapt it as you go. So we've been here for 55 minutes or so. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at, well, where I'm sitting right now, it's 3:52 in the afternoon. So we'll come back in 10 minutes from now. So whatever time it is for you, it's 2 minutes after the next hour. So I would encourage you, if you are able to, just to turn off your microphone and turn off your camera, and turn them back on in about 10 minutes time. Okay, so see you in a few minutes. Welcome back, everyone. So we spent a little bit of time talking about what is advocacy, and a little bit of time playing with Mural. And what we're going to do now is try to combine those two things a little bit more. So in our next activity, I'm going to again break you up into breakout groups. But this time, you have to really work as a group. And so if you were working mostly individually in the last breakout group, this is the time to work more closely together. I'm going to, for those groups that are speaking in English, I'm going to share with you an English language mural room. And if you are speaking in Russian, I'm going to share with you a Russian speaking mural room. Each of those rooms already has a set of post-it notes. And those post-it notes already have terms, concepts written on them. Each of the post-it notes also has a little comment box. So if you read the post-it note and you don't understand, click on the comment, and the comment will give you a little bit more of an explanation about what that is. Each of the cards, the post-it notes on your mural board, represent a stage in an overall advocacy campaign. Your job in your small group is to arrange those stages in a way that you think makes the most sense, in a way that you think works for an advocacy campaign. Now, I've only created one set of post-it notes for the Russian, and one set for the English. So the first thing that you will have to do in a small group is to figure out how to copy each of those so that you have them just for your group. So please, the original versions that are there with the comments, please leave those where they are on the mural board and make copies. You might want to change your color to a different color so that it stands out from the others, but you'll use the same board. So you'll go into the board, you'll find all the post-it notes that I've already put there, you'll copy them, and you'll move them to a different section of the board. And that's where you'll start to create your own advocacy process, the way that your small group thinks makes the most sense. You can use all of the visual tools that exist in Mural. You can use lines or circles or squiggly lines or whatever you want. But you have to use every single one of the cards, of the post-it notes that are available. Is there anything that I need to clarify? Do you have any questions? Okay, so the first thing I'll do is break you into your breakout groups, and then I'll come to each group and I'll share the link to the right mural group. So if you have an opportunity when you first go into your breakout group, introduce yourselves to each other, tell where you're from, and just wait, and I'll come into the breakout room and share the link with you. Okay? Everyone get a thumbs up. We're looking good. Okay, here we go. Diana, I'm going to move you to a different. Diana, are you assigned to a group?
Hello.
Sorry, let me stop my.
I was just kicked out.
Sorry?
I was kicked out of the breakout room. Could you put me in the third room?
Oh dear. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it's already done, I guess. The rooms are done. Okay, so I'm
done.
getting back to Russian channel, I guess.
Oh, that may be the reason. Okay, thank you.
Welcome back, everyone.
Возвращаться.
И тогда продолжаю запись.
Okay, I'm continuing the recording.
Okay. So I wanted to have pick a few groups, maybe to talk a little bit about how you to explain your illustration a little bit. I think what I'm going to do is start on. I'm going to share with everyone the link to the Russian mural. It's in the chat box now. If everyone can log in. So I see a set of orange. First of all, please raise your hand if you're part of the yellow post-it note group on the Russian language one. Then I'm going to have that group. I'll have someone from that group. If you could maybe take 2 minutes and explain how you saw the different stages fitting together.
It's we speak about yellow group, yes?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will continue in Russian because we have our notes in Russian. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Да, прежде всего.
So, first of all, we decided that we have to define the problem we are working with. Then we have to collect information to understand the scale of an issue, because an issue can be too big too broad or maybe too narrow. So we go to research. Next, where we have enough information and we understand the scale of the issue, we set goals and objectives of advocacy. Later on, we look into the political context to understand this context and to find necessary resources that we need, because this is also an important aspect. By resources, we mean human resources and also finance that we will need for some professionals. And depending on political context, these can be very different situations. So, for example, in today's Belarus, resources will be a challenging part, and this will always be some hidden underground activity, at least at the early stage. Next, we move to finding allies and also identifying decision makers and stakeholders, so that together with allies we can identify these decision makers and stakeholders and think about how to make influence on them. And later we develop the advocacy message, we communicate it on media, and later we build up the advocacy network, then we implement the plan. So after implementing the plan, we monitor, evaluate, and adjust the strategy if something is missed. And after monitoring and adjustment, I would add like re-implementation of the plan, like the second implementation, and then we celebrate. So something like this.
Does anyone have any questions for Yevgeny?
No, if I may, we just said the same. If you just switch on English and find the work of the group number 1, we named it group number 1 because we started first. We have the similarities in everything, I think. Same steps, define the issue, collect and analyze information. Now the political environment, set a goal and advocacy objects. I think only one thing difference in our groups was in the steps of identify decision makers and then find and allocate resources. They said that they will just firstly do resource finding and then stakeholders, but we decided to firstly find what our stakeholders and then get the resources around this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm curious, how about on the English side? I put the link into the box. Who is, can someone from the red group volunteer to talk about your, what you put together from the red group on the English side?
Again, we have similarities as well because, of course, we decided to define the issue first, collect and analyze information, then we wanted to set the goals and the advocacy objectives. Then we thought it was important to know the political environment, identify like decision makers and stakeholders, then find and allocate resources after that, and build a network, and develop the advocacy messages, create policy champions, use direct channels of communication and media, implement the plan, monitor and adjust the stages of if as necessary, and then lastly to celebrate success. So that's the order.
Any questions for Mariana? I have a question. So I have done this training for 15 years probably in lots of different countries. I've never done this online. I've never had this as a virtual training before because all of us are in this crazy COVID time. This is the first time I've ever done this where all of the models all look very linear, that there's one activity, then another activity, then another activity. I don't think any of them have any other kind of process where maybe it's more circular, you go from one to another, but maybe you start over again. Did any of your groups talk about this issue of whether or not it has to go in a specific order or not?
I thought it didn't matter that much, so we went like, I don't know, to make it clear. I think we put it pretty clearly for us to understand. If not, then I guess I will explain it. I already read the thing, so I think it should be clear.
If I may,
yeah, please.
We also discussed this issue, and we think not every step goes like circle, but mostly for like the most important part, which is monitoring the issues in your success. I think that monitoring, you have to do it twice a year or the times you are seeing that it's necessary and it's important. And I also, I think that celebration is a success. It's not just a finishing step, but the step which gives you motivation to go on and don't just stop on the stage you have accomplished, but to go on. And also sometimes you just have to identify the issue again, because there are some changes, and it's not just like stages like we had written, but maybe you can just go again in the circle over again, but not every step written here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, then we had to like.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, Mariana. Wait, just a moment.
Okay.
I think Sasha, Alexander, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Отвечая на ваш вопрос.
Dave, answering your question on non-linear models. We had an idea in our group to have this note on direct communication, to put it in the end and across the process, to apply this direct communication, because we need it for defining the problem and for collecting information and for everything. But somehow by default, we decided that it still should be linear. So we just put it the way we did.
Maria from Chernihiv, I think you had your hand up. Is it? Do you still have a question or a comment?
Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
Да, окей. Ну, я почти из Чернигова.
Of course.
Almost from Chernihiv.
Maria from Rivne, sorry.
I would agree with what Alexander said and Tamrico, I think, because we had an idea that information collection is happening probably throughout the campaign, just like at the stage of monitoring and selection of stakeholders and other stages. Actually, sometimes we need to make a step or two back and then to proceed. And definitely monitoring of strategy and implementation should be happening during the work, starting from the beginning of implementation, so that we can adjust and adapt the strategy.
Are there other groups who want to share their some of the issues that you were discussing, or the points that were particularly interesting or challenging for you in this process? Alexander, I see your hand, please.
Так. Да. Ну вот, собственно, мы сначала на первое место поставили карточку «Определить проблему».
First, in the beginning, we put the issue definition as the first note, but later we decided to start with direct communication channels and media, to put it first, as I said. So then the definition of the issue, developing an advocacy message, which we put second, and third comes understanding of political environment. Here too we had a discussion. What comes first? I suggested starting with understanding the environment, so that later we define an issue. So we would take examples from our societies and the issues that we are facing. But I suggested just imagining some unknown country to which we move to run an advocacy campaign, and we don't know the context yet. This is why I suggested starting with understanding the context. Understand the political, to understand the public situation in this country. And later on, we set the advocacy goal, then we identify decision makers and stakeholders. So here we also had an issue. Maybe first we should find resources and then we identify decision makers. But we decided to put it first. Later to find policy champions, and, to raise and allocate resources. Later we have the networking note. I have a problem with this card since I don't understand what you mean by advocacy network. So I would appreciate a comment on it. Later on, we have collection of analysis of information. Afterwards, we have monitoring and adjustment of strategy, and implementation of the plan. Then celebration. So Evgeny said in the beginning that after the adjustment, first we have plans, then we implement, we adjust and implement, and adjust and implement. I agree with it. That probably we need several adjustments, and then we come back to implementation. Thanks.
Thank you. Alexander asked about, to clarify, the card that was build an advocacy network. Did someone else understand that pretty well and want to try to explain it?
Сеть адвокатирования, можно, да?
Advocacy network, if I may. Well, our understanding, well, we worked with Alexander in our group. My understanding is that there are certain stages of advocacy to address a problem, stage by stage. And communication in the process.
And Alexander, to your question about the advocacy network, it's this idea that, and I think someone had raised this point, Svetlana, it might have been you in the first session, which is this idea that advocacy requires lots of voices and partners and organizations. And so your advocacy network, another way to think of it is a coalition, but pulling together these different voices that are going to work together. Inga, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this very shortly. I think, to put it very shortly and clearly, I guess it's about finding friends, basically like-minded people, those who would support you in any case and who would share your interests and this goal that you have set for the whole group.
Thank you.
That's it.
Maxime, you had your hand up for a while, please.
Да, я хотел сказать, что здесь есть две карточки мониторинга.
Well, here we have two cards, monitoring and adjustment, and fundraising. Like, I think we should do it after each stage. Each stage we should monitor, so it actually can't be linear. That's my point. And it can't be only circular either. So it should be something more flexible. And as you put right, like this networking is also done all the time. And then you can celebrate success repeatedly. The ways can be adjusted depending on the country and the partnerships. Also the quality of decision makers and stakeholders that you are dealing with. Also, after each stage, you can use media channels, since it's very important to publicize the information that you're obtaining, because it will help you to build your advocacy network.
Thanks. Anna?
Да, в нашей группе мы еще думали над тем,
In our group, we also thought about where to put the advocacy message. Should we do it after contacting the media and identify the stakeholders, or before that? But in the end, we decided that first we need to have the message developed, something that we want to say. Since wherever we communicate to media, to policy champions, or to stakeholders, we need to have some information prepared, and we want to understand what we want from them. So we decided to place it first. Thanks.
Thank you. Nastya Mahirnyak, can I give you the last word? I think you have your hand up.
Да, привет. Спасибо за интересное задание. Вот именно по этому
Yes, hello. Thank you for an interesting assignment. As far as media are concerned, we had a debate on where to place it. First, we thought that we will use the communication channels to reach out to decision makers, because usually when you make noise, some people can contact you, and then we find the decision makers. Or maybe we first find the decision makers and use media together so that our voice is more heard. As Maxim said, media should be used on a regular basis, periodically, so it's not something linear. At several stages, we have to update our information periodically and to make our voices heard, so we could use media. We start from a pure message. Later, we also have decision makers and policy champions, and we go up the hill.
Thank you for that, and thank you everyone. I think so. What is for me? What is I think very useful from an activity like this is that it illustrates that there are strategic steps that should be taken in any advocacy campaign. And if you think back to the definition that I shared with you in the first session, one of the points that I talked about was that advocacy is a set of strategic actions. And we talked about this idea that you do some planning and you do some thinking, you have an objective that you're working towards. And so to my mind, which step comes first and which step comes second is less important than understanding that there are lots of stages, and it's important to go through those different stages. Which stages you go through in Serbia might be different than the order that you go through in Ukraine or the order that you go through in Belarus. But this idea that you're thinking strategically, that you're focusing on fundraising and communications and building a network and creating policy champions and so forth. It's important to remember all these different stages as you're putting together your advocacy plan, and also as you're implementing that advocacy plan as you move forward. So I'm conscious of the time, and we're now slowly wrapping up. I have some handouts that I will share with Maria at the Educational Human Rights House Chernihiv, and she can in turn then share them with all of you. I know that you'll be having some more virtual sessions in the coming days that will look at how do you do advocacy virtually? How do you use digital social media platforms to do advocacy? You'll be working with a colleague of mine named Isla, who's fantastic, and thinking about some of these concepts that we've talked about today, and thinking about how those concepts can apply in a virtual space when you have to do advocacy behind a computer screen and these sorts of things, which of course is a big struggle for all of us these days. So with that, maybe I'll say thank you. And Maria, I don't know if you have any kind of housekeeping, administrative things you need to flag for anyone, or any final comments that you have that you want to share also.
Yes, Dave. Да, Дэйв, спасибо большое. Я
Thank
еще
you,
сейчас
Dave. I will say in Russian. Thank you for hosting this session. I think it was very useful and very interactive. I think I will stop the recording on the Russian channel at this point.